Have you ever wondered, what if the stories told at night could shape a child's destiny? What if every whisper, every tale, planted seeds that one day grew into greatness? Tonight, I will tell you the story of a poor little girl, mocked by many, forgotten by most, but whose life was transformed because her mother chose to tell her a story every single night. This is not just a tale, it is a reminder of the power of words, and how wisdom, even in the poorest home, can change a life forever. Welcome to Tales by Lymarh. Please like, share and subscribe. The night pressed heavily upon the village. From the thick bushes, crickets sang in rhythm while the moon hid shyly behind drifting clouds. Inside a tiny mud brick hut, an oil lamp flickered, its flame bending each time the wind sneaked through cracks in the wall. On a raffia mat lay a small girl, Amara. She was only 9 years old, yet her eyes carried a longing far beyond her years. While other children fell asleep as soon as night arrived, Amara always stayed awake, waiting, because night in her home meant story time. Her mother, Mama F, would set aside her pounding pestle, wipe her tired palms against her wrapper, and sit by her daughter's mat. Her eyes, though heavy with exhaustion, always softened when she looked at Amara. "Are you ready, my child?" she whispered. Amara's lips curled into a smile, her voice barely above a breath. "Yes, Mama." And so, the stories began. That night, Mama F told of the tortoise and the crown of wisdom. With every word, the tiny room dissolved into something magical. Amara could see the greedy tortoise tricking the animals, could hear the chatter of the birds, could feel the suspense as the crown was stolen, and could almost taste the bitterness of his downfall. When the story ended, her mother leaned closer and brushed Amara's braids. "Remember, my daughter, greed makes a person stumble, but wisdom makes them rise." Those words sank deep into Amara's soul. And as she closed her eyes that night, she did not just sleep, she dreamed of a life far beyond her tiny hut. The next day, the harshness of reality returned. Amara fetched firewood barefoot under the scorching sun, while other children walked to school in neat uniforms. At class, she scribbled notes on the ground with chalk borrowed from a kind teacher, because her mother couldn't afford exercise books. Her classmates laughed. "Look at her. Too poor to even buy paper." The sting of their words pierced her, but Amara carried something invisible that no one could mock, her mother's stories. When they called her ugly, she remembered the ugly calabash that held the sweetest palm wine. She told herself, "They only see the outside. One day, they will see what is inside me." When her arms ached from carrying heavy firewood, she remembered the tale of the tiny ant that carried loads many times its weight. She whispered, "If an ant can, then I can too." But still, she was only a child. And children sometimes break. One evening, after another humiliating day at school, Amara ran home in tears. She clung to her mother, sobbing, "Mama, why are we the poorest? Why does life laugh at us?" Mama F's embrace tightened. The lamp's flame quivered, shadows swaying across the wall. She lifted her daughter's chin, her eyes glistening. "Do you know why I tell you stories every night, Amara?" Amara shook her head. "Because poverty can steal your clothes, your food, even your bed, but it cannot steal what I plant here." She touched Amara's forehead softly. "If your mind is rich, one day your life will be rich too." Those words, like seeds, took root in Amara's heart. The village buzzed with excitement weeks later. The chief had announced a great festival of harvest. Drums thundered across the fields. Women dyed wrappers in bold colors of red, blue, and gold. Children rehearsed dances, eager to perform before the crowd. But what stirred the village most was the riddle contest. Each year, the elder, Papa Nato, tested the people with riddles that bent the mind like dry sticks in fire. Whoever answered correctly would win a prize from the chief himself. Amara's heart burned with desire. She wanted to try. But when she spoke, the other children burst into cruel laughter. "You? Poor Amara. With your torn wrapper? Better hide in your hut, girl. The square is not for people like you. That night, Amara sat in silence. Doubt gnawed at her. But Mama F knew. She lit the lamp, sat by her side, and told her a story. Once, there was a sparrow, she began. It was the smallest of birds. The hawk mocked it, the eagle despised it, even the crow laughed. But one day, a great storm came, and only the sparrow's song was strong enough to calm the winds. The storm abated. That is how small things prove their greatness. Amara's eyes widened. Her little chest rose and fell with new courage. She whispered again and again as she drifted to sleep. Small things prove their greatness. The next morning, when the drums called the villagers to the square, Amara rose. Her wrapper was still faded. Her feet were still bare. But her mind carried a crown. And so, she walked toward the square. The square was alive with color and sound. Women's wrappers swirled in the rhythm of drums, streaks of bright indigo and crimson catching the sunlight. Men's talking drums beat like heartbeats, children ran in circles, their laughter piercing the heavy air. At the far end of the square stood Papa Nato, the elder. His hair was white like the feathers of an egret, and his staff was carved from the wood of an iroko tree. Every year, he tested the minds of the people, and every year, only a handful ever answered him correctly. Villagers gathered close, eager for the contest. The young, the old, the proud, all came to prove themselves. The prize glistened in the chief's hand, a golden bracelet, shining as the sun caught it. To many, it was wealth. To Amara, it was proof that the seeds her mother planted inside her were not in vain. But when Amara stepped forward, whispers spread like wildfire. Look, it's Amara, the poor girl. What is she doing here? Does she think riddles are for beggars? She should be fetching firewood, not shaming herself in front of the chief. Their words struck her like stones, but Mama F's voice echoed in her mind, small things prove their greatness. Amara tightened her fist. She stood tall, her wrapper plain, her feet dusty, but her gaze steady. Papa Nato's sharp eyes swept over the crowd until they landed on her. He tapped his staff against the ground once, twice. The square grew silent. Let us begin, he said. Papa Nato's voice was low, yet it carried across the crowd like the hum of a hidden drum. He raised his staff and asked, "What drinks without a mouth, and runs without legs?" The crowd murmured. Men scratched their heads, women muttered, children whispered guesses. The goat, someone shouted. No, the wind, another argued. But Papa Nato's face remained stern. Amara's heart pounded. She remembered a story her mother once told. About the great river that swallowed villages, drinking endlessly but never speaking, running from mountain to sea without legs to carry it. She stepped forward, her voice trembling at first, but clear, the river. A hush fell over the square. Then Papa Nato's lips curved into a smile. Correct. Gasps broke from the crowd. The poor girl got it. How can that be? Impossible. The chief leaned forward in his chair, intrigued. Amara's heart soared, but she did not smile. She remembered her mother's warning, wisdom is not pride, it is power carried with humility. She bowed her head slightly, her eyes fixed on the ground. Papa Nato tapped his staff again. The next riddle. Papa Nato's voice deepened as he asked the second riddle. What grows without roots, and shines but holds no fire? The square grew tense. Women pressed their hands against their wrappers. Men folded their arms, thinking hard. Children squinted into the sky as though the answer might be written in the clouds. Amara's chest tightened. For a moment, her mind was blank. Doubt clawed at her. She could hear the crowd whispering again. She was lucky the first time. Now she will fail. This is not for her. But then, like a lantern flickering to life, her mother's story returned. The one about the moon and the stars, lights that shone in the night sky, glowing without fire, blooming without roots in the earth. Amara raised her head slowly, her voice stronger this time. The stars. The crowd erupted. Some shouted in disbelief, others clapped their hands. Children jumped, pointing at the sky as if to confirm her answer. Papa Nato's staff struck the ground. His eyes twinkled. Correct. The chief leaned back, whispering to his counselors. The golden bracelet gleamed brighter, as if waiting for her wrist. But not everyone was pleased. Some villagers scowled. Envy simmered in their eyes. A girl mocked yesterday was now shining brighter than the proudest boys of the village. Papa Nato raised his hand again. One last riddle, he declared. Only then shall we know if this girl's wisdom is truly hers, or if fortune has merely smiled on her twice. The crowd held its breath. And Amara? Amara closed her eyes. She could feel her mother's hand on her forehead, her voice echoing. If your mind is rich, your life will one day be rich too. Years passed after that fateful day in the square. Amara was no longer the poor girl mocked for her torn wrapper. The bracelet she won became more than jewelry, it became a symbol, a reminder that wisdom was her crown. But life did not suddenly become easy. When she earned a scholarship to study in the city, the battles grew even harder. There, she faced new storms, loneliness, discrimination, and the lure of wealth without integrity. There were nights when she almost gave in, nights when the city's glitter tempted her to abandon her values. But then, in the silence of her small rented room, she would remember her mother's voice echoing across the years. Poverty can take your food, your clothes, even your bed, but it cannot take what I plant here. And each time, her spirit stood firm. In the city, her wisdom made her different. Teachers noticed her brilliance, friends sought her counsel, and even strangers marveled at her calmness under pressure. She became a lawyer, a voice for the voiceless, defending widows, orphans, and those society ignored, people like she and her mother once were. But through it all, Amara never forgot the seed of her strength, stories. One bright morning, after many years, Amara returned to her village. She no longer wore torn wrappers, her clothes were neat, her steps confident. She had built a life far beyond the poverty that once caged her, yet she came back not with pride, but with humility. The village gathered in awe. The same people who once mocked her now whispered, "Look at Amara. She has become a great woman." Children flocked around her, eyes wide, mouths eager with questions. And there, beneath the same old Irako tree where she once stood trembling, Amara sat and lifted her hands for silence. "My children," she began, her voice carrying the weight of experience, "do you know how my life changed? Not by gold, not by riches, not by luck, but by stories. Every night, my mother filled my heart with words that shaped my future. Stories gave me wings when I had no shoes, courage when I had no strength, and light when the world gave me darkness." The children leaned closer, their eyes fixed on her. "And now," Amara continued, "I will give you what she gave me." That night, under the same stars she once used as answers, Amara told the village children her mother's stories, the tortoise and the crown of wisdom, the sparrow that calmed storms, the future that always lies ahead. Her voice rose and fell like a river, and as she spoke, she could see it, the same spark in their eyes that once glowed in hers. The cycle had begun again. The seed had found new soil. Moral of the story. The words we hear shape the people we become. A single story, spoken with love and wisdom, can change the course of a life. Poverty may steal many things, but knowledge and wisdom, once planted in the mind, can lift even the weakest child into greatness. Parents, never stop speaking life into your children. Children, never Despise the seeds of wisdom planted in you. For from those small seeds, destinies are born. Thank you for watching this powerful story here on Tales by Lymarh. Remember, every tale carries a lesson, and every lesson carries the power to transform your life. If Amara's journey touched your heart, let her story remind you that greatness is not found in wealth, but in the wisdom we carry within us. Glowing Star. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss another journey filled with lessons, courage, and hope. Until next time, keep the fire of stories burning in your heart, because here at Tales by Lymarh, every story is a light in the darkness.